Hi, my name's Philippa Haynes from Insight 101. We are a brand strategy consultancy and we support businesses to create their brand vision and values and translate that into great marketing messages and also a fantastic brand culture. So today I have been writing a presentation um, for the Institute of Management and Leadership, where I'll be talking next week. And I've been talking about the importance of brand values. But what I've also been talking about is what happens when you don't have values. What are the downsides? And I was giving an example, putting together a case study of a shoe retailer that I worked for in a previous life. And it was going through lots of changes, profits were down, and so that caused a lot of questions to be asked, difficult decisions to be made, and definitely a very difficult environment to work in. I think the word toxic is always used around culture, and it was definitely not a particularly positive experience for multiple reasons. But one of those reasons is that if you have brand values and a vision that guides you, then it doesn't matter what happens, whether it's positive or negative. You have a vision and values that unite you as a team, and it defines your behaviours and defines your approach generally to business, and it gives that sort of sticking glue, if you like, to your employees and the teams around, so that when things get difficult, they have something to refer to, something tangible, something concrete, which will help them make some decisions, whether they're easy or difficult decisions, but it gives them something to hold on to. And that is particularly important. Now, this organisation that I'm talking about didn't really have values that were identified and officially kind of launched, I guess you'd say. People who'd been in the business a long time could talk about the values from their perspective, but there wasn't a united front there. So, of course, when things get tough, people start to behave very differently. They take out their own perspective on a business, and pretty soon people are unhappy, feeling insecure, making up their own minds, and generally starting to behave in a way that is probably unusual to them, but also isn't particularly great for the business in question. Now, if those values had been defined earlier and the business was using those to guide them, then they would already have a master plan, if you like, through thick and thin, but they didn't. But one of the answers to the problems they had was to start to put in place some values that the teams could all live by. Now, the number one problem is that that was led by one person who pulled that together themselves, I suspect. And so it came out as a beautiful presentation which looked amazing. It was even in book format that landed on our desks. But the problem is that is somebody else's work. That piece of work was almost inflicted on people rather than a part of their own thinking. And it's incredibly important when you do this values work to include opinion, to give your teams a sense that they are part of that values creation. They agree with it and they've bought into it wholeheartedly at the start of the process. If you develop something after the horse has bolted, if you like, but also without um, opinion from teams, then they will look at that, whatever has been produced, as though it's not theirs. It won't feel like theirs. They will feel slightly alienated, possibly not very happy and cross about it. But importantly, they won't buy into it and they won't live by these values. Now, in the example that I've been talking about, not only were these values kind of put on our desks, but equally they were forgotten about. So they weren't really used then to guide the thinking moving forward. So senior leadership didn't demonstrate those values, those behaviours. It was pretty much put on the side on a bookshelf, and everybody carried on business as usual. So actually, it became more of a process that they went through, but actually, it didn't feel wholehearted, and it didn't feel purposeful, and it didn't feel at the end of the day like it added value. So the key things to remember when you are putting your brand values together in your business is make sure that your teams are included. Make sure it feels personal to them and meaningful to them. Make sure people understand what those values mean and start to talk about what are those behaviours then that are expected. But the most important thing is that these values need to be lived out by the leadership teams. And it needs to guide all of their decision making, the way that they communicate, all of their marketing communication, everything that they do. The values should be at the heart of that and should be the guardrails. So values, very, very important, can really make or break a culture and an organisation, in fact, if people start to leave and they're unhappy. So if you have any questions or it sparked a thought, then please get in touch.